New documents increase pressure on Trudeau in SNC Lavalin affair. Video.
I'm not calling about the litigation directive. I'm calling about the other unpleasant one. The deferred prosecution agreement thing and SNC and so on. I wanted to pass on where the PM's at. So there's a lot of anxiety, like another rising anxiety, as you can imagine, about signature firm and job loss and all that coming after the Oshawa thing and what's going on in Calgary and whatnot. So the PM wants to be able to say that he has tried everything he can, within a legitimate toolbox to try to head that off. So he's quite determined, quite firm, that he wants to know why the DPA route, which Parliament provided for, isn't being used. And I think he's going to find a way to get it done one way or another. So he's in that kind of mood, and I wanted you to be aware of that. So he's thinking about bringing in somebody like Bev McLaughlin to give him advice on this, or to give you advice to make, if you want to feel more comfortable that you're not doing anything that's inappropriate or outside the frame of...
100% confident I'm doing nothing inappropriate.
Yeah. No, but would not be if you decided to use some of these tools under the law. Because I think he feels the government has to have done everything it can before we lose 9,000 jobs in a signature Canadian firm.
I'm confident in where I'm at, and my views on SNC and the DPA haven't changed. This is a constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence that, Michael, I have to say, including this conversation, previous conversations that I've had with the Prime Minister and many other people around it, it's entirely inappropriate, and it is political interference. I'm surprised that you and I are having this conversation, but I'm just saying that I really feel uncomfortable and about the appropriateness of this conversation.
Okay, I understand that. I think his view is he's not asking you to do anything appropriate or to interfere. He's asking you to use all of the tools that you lawfully have at your disposal.
I know I have a tool under the Prosecution Act that I can use. I do not believe it is appropriate to use it in this case.
Okay. All right. Then that's clear. He's in a very firm mood about this, so...
Does he understand the gravity of what this potentially could mean? This is not just about saving jobs. This is about interfering with one of our fundamental institutions. This is like breaching a constitutional principle of prosecutorial independance. So I
don't think he sees it as that.
Well, then nobody's explaining that to him, Michael.
Well, I don't, I'm going to have to report back on before he leaves. He's in a pretty firm frame of mind about this, though, so I'm a bit worried.
A bit worried about what?
Well, it's not a good idea for the Prime Minister and his Attorney General to be at loggerheads.
Well, I feel that I'm giving him my best advice, and if he doesn't accept that advice, then it's his prerogative to do what he wants. But I am trying to protect the Prime Minister from political interference, or perceived or otherwise.
Well, I understand that, but he doesn't have the power to do what he wants. All the tools are in your hands, so...
Okay, so then, I'm having thoughts of the Saturday Night Massacre here, Michael, to be honest with you. And I don't, this is not a great place for me to be in. I don't relish being in this place, but what I am confident of is that I've given the Prime Minister my best advice to protect him and to protect the constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence.
Okay. All right, but I'm worried about a collision then, because he's pretty firm about this. I just saw him a few hours ago, and this is really important to him, and Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks.
For calling back so quickly.
No problem.
And, we'll see. He's still around tomorrow. There's a number of things on the go right now. So.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, so I'm not under any illusion how the Prime Minister has and gets things that he wants, and I'm just stuck doing the best job that I can.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Talk again.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is under new pressure after his former Justice Minister released new documents relating to the SNC-Lavalin affair. Jody Wilson-Raybould says government officials tried to persuade her to shield the company from prosecution in a corruption case. She gave an audio recording and other materials to a Commons committee. The files were released publicly on Friday and are likely to increase pressure on Mr. Trudeau. He has struggled for weeks to contain the fallout from the controversy. SNC-Lavalin is facing claims that former executives paid bribes to win contracts in Libya under Muammar Gaddafi's regime, which fell in 2011. The Liberal Prime Minister has been accused of pressuring Ms. Wilson-Raybould to push for a legal favour for SNC-Lavalin that would allow it to avoid prosecution and instead face alternative penalties like a fine. The affair has seen the Prime Minister lose two top ministers, including Ms. Wilson-Raybould, who resigned from cabinet in February, Canada's top bureaucrat, and a senior aide. Mr. Trudeau has denied any wrongdoing by either him or his staff and maintains nothing untoward happened. But opinion surveys indicate that the controversy has shaken Mr. Trudeau and his government's popularity months before a general election due in October. The documents made public include an audio recording, lasting nearly 18 minutes, of a December phone call between Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Clerk of the Privy Council Michael Wernick about the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. The former Justice Minister and Attorney General said she took the extraordinary and otherwise inappropriate step of recording the call without Mr. Wernick's knowledge because she wanted a precise account of the conversation. She said was concerned about what she saw as attempts to interfere in the case. In the call, there is a lengthy back and forth between the pair, during which the senior public servant repeatedly notes that the Prime Minister is interested in having the firm avoid prosecution in favour of an agreement. Mr. Trudeau and his officials have said they were concerned that thousands of jobs are at risk if the engineering firm is convicted. She pushes back, warning she felt the conversation was inappropriate and that continued communications about the matter could cross the lines of her prosecutorial independence as Attorney General. The recording allows members of the committee to decide for themselves about whether or not she was pressured by Mr. Wernick, Ms. Wilson-Raybould writes. Mr. Wernick stepped down as Canada's top bureaucrat this month. The Liberal-dominated Justice Committee dropped the inquiry into the SNC-Lavalin affair earlier this month, saying its objectives have been achieved. After the committee ended the inquiry, Ms. Wilson-Raybould announced that she would submit further materials to back up her testimony. Some 40 pages were released, which include copies of texts and emails, as well as Ms. Wilson-Raybould's elaboration on her view of the events. Opposition parties had wanted Ms. Wilson-Raybould to return to committee following her bombshell testimony in February, where she accused Mr. Trudeau and members of his inner circle of spending months trying to politically interfere in the SNC-Lavalin matter.